Hi everyone, welcome to my Park Jet beginner flying series. Obviously today we're not going to do any flying. Bentley has lent me his little MiG-29 version 1 here as a bit of a training aid. But anyway, I wanted to kind of go over, and it took me quite a while to pare this down, I guess, into a top 10 because the number of things that I did wrong in when I first got started off in the RC hobby, and primarily in park jets, would take forever and a day. And then, if you've watched some of my other table talks, I do have a problem with rambling. So I'm going to try and keep this sort of in a top 10. Now, some of the points will have little bits of amplifying points, but anyway. So number one mistake that I started making, I think that caused me the most grief for the longest time, was building my planes far too heavy. In my recent build series on the MiG-29 version 1, I built a plane. Haven't flown it yet, but I've built, it should fly okay. I built a MiG-29 version 1, and with a 2200 3S battery, pardon me, it weighs around 17 ounces. The first one that I built weighed 21 ounces. So when in doubt, I was a card-carrying member of the Overbuilders Anonymous Club. When in doubt, I added more reinforcement, I added more glue, I added more tape. All these things piled up. Plane was too heavy, had to fly it too fast, didn't fly well, and when crashes happened, they were pretty much catastrophic. A lot of my original crashes were, the plane didn't walk away from them. It got put in a bag, parts recycled, and got thrown away. Were not repairable. So that's probably the number one lesson. And I was very pig-headed and stubborn. I'm the first to admit. It took me a very, very long time to turn that corner to build my planes lighter, and as soon as I did, my planes flew a lot better. My percentage of crashing as opposed to flying went way, way down, so that was a big one. Point number two is doing, every time before I go flying, perhaps the night before, if I'm charging batteries the day before, is take my plane, have a good look over it, make sure that all the control surfaces are good, the hinges, everything is still in place. I haven't had a servo come loose. All my connections, my wiring connections are good. Just give the plane a good inspection. Make sure that there's no hairline cracks somewhere that you might have missed or happened in the last flying session, and then repair those. So making sure my plane's in good shape. The other thing, is that also includes the transmitter. Making sure that my transmitter batteries are in good shape. I got plenty of juice there so that I don't get out to the field and my transmitter starts acting up because the battery's low. And also, if I've been doing some playing around with mixes or any of that sort of stuff, is just checking to make sure that everything is good. That I haven't put a mix in there that I didn't really want. Pardon me. The other thing, especially for beginners, me personally, this is just my philosophy. I'm not a big fan of dual rates for beginners. I think it's just another thing to think about. That especially when you're first starting to fly, you don't want to be thinking about flipping switches. Am I in high rate? Am I in dual rate? Oh my gosh, what's going on? So what you want to make sure you do is that if your radio does have an aileron switch, or elevator switch, and it has dual rates, is that if you've set up, so that you have, let's say, 30% expo and 70% on your throws, what I would suggest is go into your high rate mode and set that exactly the same. Okay, so that if for whatever reason your excitement to get flying, or while you're flying, you happen to bump the switch, it's not going to matter. Your throws and expo are going to be exactly the same. These lessons are all based on things I've learned the hard way. I had a situation where I didn't do that early on. I go to launch a plane for the first time, and I had my aileron switch flipped down. I wasn't paying attention, and first time I went into a turn, I had 100% rates on the aileron and 0 expo, and next thing I knew, I was completely inverted upside down in the process of doing a roll, and it scared the living daylights out of me. Also, so if you have any other switches where check to make sure that if you flip through your switches that nothing funky's happening with your plane. I've had it happen to me before, and I see other people that still have issues with it, where they have a switch or something that's got something on it, maybe left over from an old model, and then the next thing they're causing themselves self-induced pain. So that's something to check. Have a plan, and this is a kind of a two-part one. This is part 3. Have a plan. It's kind of a two-part one, especially when you're first learning. You know, before you head out to the field, or as you're driving out to the field, or whatever. You know, think about, okay, just go over in your head how your last flight session, last couple of flight sessions went. Were you really struggling with turns, or you know, was there something that you found you were really having difficulty with, or maybe you're feeling pretty good at where you are now, and now it's time, you want to make some progression. You're going to progress into something else. So have a bit of a goal, especially when you're first learning, and say, okay, I really wasn't happy. My turns were really jerky, so today I want to really focus on keeping my turns smooth, and having the plane staying level as it turns, not climbing or diving or doing anything crazy like that. Okay. That really helps, because then it gives you some focus, and you can start learning, focus on having nice smooth turns, and then you'll have a better, I found anyway, I had a better feeling of accomplishment when I left the field after flying, that okay, I was really happy with how my turns went, or maybe I wasn't happy, I need to work on them some more, or I tried my first new aerobatic sequence. I did a nice smooth uniform roll, or I did a nice loop or a roll, something like that. So it helps to have a plan. And when you're first learning, especially, this was one thing that took me a while, is when you get ready to launch the plane, have a plan on what you're going to do for at least like the first 20-30 seconds of your flight. Have a plan that, okay, you've watched a lot of my videos. I seem to have a right turn phobia, or a right turn osis or something. Lots of times, I take off, and that first turn I go to the right. So have an idea that, okay, I'm going to take off, I'm going to turn right, I'm going to turn left, and I'm going to come by, do a nice circuit, and then I'm going to get into, whatever routine. Either I have a planned routine, or I'm just going to kind of freestyle it. The reason I say that is that, a lot of times it happened to me, and I still see it happen to some new flyers at my field, even guys that don't fly park jets, is they get the airplane airborne, and then it's like, oh God, what do I do? And the next thing, while they're thinking about that, the plane is continuing, to drone down the takeoff path, and either the plane gets too far away, or they get too close to some trees, or something like that. So, have a plan for when that plane leaves your hands. You know what you're going to do. It just will get you started off, rather than 15-20 seconds into your first flight, you're in instant panic mode because you forget what to do, and then it's really hard to start relaxing for the rest of your flight. So, have a plan, launch it, do that, and then you can do whatever you want to after that. This is point number 4. Especially if you're learning, and you're starting to build more planes, and you're really starting to enjoy the hobby. Especially if it's it's a brand new plane. Let's say you've built a brand new plane, and you're taking it out for the maiden flight. What I would always do, especially when you're first learning, take your go-to plane with you as well. So let's say you've got a MiG-29 version 1, and that's your go-to plane. You could fly that half asleep with one hand tied behind your back, and you've got your other new super sporty plane. Take this, give yourself a couple of flights, get a couple battery packs through it, get the brain warmed up, get your thumbs warmed up, and then you can do your maiden. I mean, I've been flying park jets for nearly 6 years now, and I still do that. If I'm going to maiden a new plane, if it's a type of plane I've never flown before, I'll take a plane that I really feel comfortable with, fly it, a couple times, get the brain, get the thumbs warmed up, and then I'll do my maiden flight, because I learned the hard way. Go out, throw a new plane that you've never flown before, especially if it's been a while since you've flown. Maybe it's been a couple weeks or a month. Give yourself a chance to warm up, and then take on the new challenge. I know this goes for a lot of things in life. Point number 5: walk before you can run. Master some of the basics first, and that comes in a lot of things. Don't, if you're brand new to flying, don't jump from the MiG-29 version 1 to the T-50 version 5. Let's say the T-50 version 5 is a great plane to fly, but it is considerably a bit more of a handful, because it's fast, it's extremely agile. So take some logical steps of progression as you build more planes, and then the same thing in your flying. Don't you know, on your third flight, okay, well, I can do a turn half decent. Now I'm going to try high alpha or inverted high alpha, or, you know, I'm going to do multiple rolls and loops and, you know, crazy, you know, cobras and whatever else. Just stay within yourself, I guess, is what I'm saying there is walk before you can run. I look at it this way, you know, when I first started off, you know, I, like everybody else, you watch all these hot shots on YouTube and on the forums, and you think like, oh yeah, he's, you know, he's a really great pilot, I want to be just like him. Well, you know, you have no idea how long it's taken that person to get that way. So, you know, just stay within yourself. I am a firm believer of the philosophy that the only person you have to keep happy when you're standing there with your transmitter in your hand and your plane's flying around is you. So, you know, don't worry about what anybody else is doing, what anybody else says. You know, there's plenty of people, like anything in life, who are great armchair quarterbacks, and they're going to tell you, I guess maybe like me even, you know, tell you what you should do. But, you know, stay within yourself, and I think you're going to have a lot more enjoyment in the hobby. So that is both the airplane that you build and how you fly. And then, you know, as you feel yourself getting more confident, then you can take the next step. The 3A's, triple A's, airspace, airspeed, and altitude are your friends. You know, one of the first things that I guess this was a bit of a paradigm for me is I really was scared to get up too high, because I thought, oh, if my plane, you know, if I'm up too high and I do something wrong, it's going to come thundering down and it's going to smash it all up. Well, the reverse is true. The more altitude that you have, you know, the better chance that you have to recover. You know, and you hear this adage all the time, oh, you should be 2 mistakes high or 3 mistakes high. To me, that means nothing. You know, because my 2 mistakes are different than yours. So, you know, get up there where you're nice and clear of any trees, any obstacles. You can see the plane. You can comfortably fly it around, whatever you think. Also, airspeed. You know, these foamies, they tend to lose their momentum quite a bit faster than maybe you know, a fiberglass or a balsa plane. So especially when you're first learning and you're flying, you know, when you're going into a turn, you know, make sure that you're keeping the speed up so that, you know, you don't get into a turn, the plane gets mushy, and you know, the next thing you're slamming the sticks around trying to recover. Doesn't mean you go into a turn full speed, but, you know, you'll sort of find out what speed you need to be at to keep your plane flying safely, and especially when you're flying in wind. Having a bit more altitude and a bit more airspeed is always helpful. And by airspace, I mean, you know, put yourself in a situation. If you watch my flying videos, my field is sort of surrounded on all 4 sides by trees, including right in behind me. So, you know, you have to get used to, when you're first flying. When I first learned to fly, you know, one of the old timers at the field just said, look, just make sure you keep lots of blue between your plane and the tops of the trees, and you'll be fine. So, you know, don't put yourselves in situations where you're constantly, you know, trying to do slaloms through trees or anything. Get yourself, you know, in a place where you got lots of room, lots of airspeed and altitude, and that will definitely help you get with your learning curve. I guess this kind of goes in hand maybe with what I've said before. Master the basics. You know, turns especially. You know, because if you can get a nice, smooth, coordinated turn without jerking the plane all over the sky, a lot of other stuff is going to come far more naturally. There's several ways you can do that, and you know, throughout the flying series, I'm going to hope to demonstrate this. One of the things that really helped me was, rather than just flying incessant, you know, right-hand circuits and then left-hand circuits, is to do like a figure 8. So if right in front of you is kind of the center of the 8, you know, so fly out at an angle, you know, make a right turn, come all the way back, you know, you can level out whatever, and then right in front of you start a left-hand turn, and just keep doing that. Now maybe do that 2 or 3 times, and then bust out of that, and then reverse it so that you come back the other way. So what that'll help you is in a very short period of time, you're doing turns going in both directions. And it also, especially when you're learning how to fly, one of the biggest challenges is orientation. Because, you know, when the plane's coming at you or the plane's sideways and you want it to turn right, at first it takes a while to get used to, okay, well, if I want this plane to turn right, which way do I push the stick? Because if it's coming towards you, you know, if you go push your stick to the right, the plane's going to go this way, but that's opposite to the way you want, you know, so it takes a little while to learn that. So if it by doing that figure 8, it sort of puts the plane in several different angles away from you and towards you, so you can get that as well. And I also, sometimes I used to do, somebody else taught me, I'd do like a zigzag where, you know, I'd start off sort of at one end of the field and then just kind of do a slalom down the field, you know, get to the other end and then do it, you know, coming back the other way. So those are drills. And if you're just starting off now, those are things that I would strongly encourage you, if you're flying a simulator, is practice those in the simulator as well. Is that, you know, then you'll get the hand-eye coordination, or the muscle memory in your, you know, through from your brain to your thumbs to get the plane going whatever way you want it, depending on how it's oriented to. Because let's face it, in your flight, you know, your average flight when you're out at the field, you're going to be making a lot of turns. I mean, I've never counted them. I should sometime, but you know, you make a lot of turns because you have to keep the plane, you know, close to you. So if you can master having a nice smooth turn and feel under control when your plane's in a turn, that's going to really build a good foundation for later on. This is a tough one. Again, you know, do your best to relax if you can. When I first started flying, I used to hold my transmitter a little bit differently, and I would get just an absolute bloody death grip on my transmitter, you know, and I'd be jamming my thumbs way down hard on top of my sticks, and you know, all that happens is I'd have so much tension going down through my arms and into my hands that even with lots of expo, my control inputs were very, very jerky because I was putting so much pressure on the stick, and then, you know, your heart rate's up and your stress level's up. So do your best to, you know, as much as you can, try and relax, and by, you know, giving yourself lots of space, keeping the speed up so your plane is easy to control, lots of altitude in case you make a boo-boo, that will help as well. But do your best to try and relax, because it'll make the flying a lot easier. You know what? Crashing is just a fact of life. I hate crashing, but you know, I used to do a ton of it. I was like a master at it. I've built probably 80 planes, 80 park jets in the 5.5 years I've been in this hobby, and I don't think I would be far off if I said in that first year and a half I probably destroyed 40 of them, over half of them. You know, and that's because I made a lot of mistakes, some of which I'm, you know, talking about here. But you know, it's just going to be a fact of life, and that's why I think, you know, especially if you're first getting into park jets or you're fairly brand new in the hobby, you know, build something. You know, if you're just really brand new into flying, personally, I would go find something on Flight Test. You know, they've got several little flyers. You know, the Nut Ball, and there's other plans around for a plane called the Cheap and Easy, things like that. They're just flat foam. They're super easy, but you know, you get something in the air, and the other thing is, you know, you gonk it in. It's easy. You know, everything's a flat surface. It's easy to fix. Number one thing that I learned, this goes with crashing, is if you realize that you're going to crash, just let it happen, and you can actually, planes are probably going to be a lot more survivable. You know, I used to get to the point where I was so stubborn, I think, oh yeah, I can fly my way out of it, and I'm, you know, down at 5 feet off the ground, you know, flailing around, and I'm, you know, over controlling. I got way too much power on, and then when the crash does happen, you know, the plane gets destroyed because I've probably got full throttle on. So if you get to the point where you think, oh my God, I'm going to crash, the main advice I could give you is chop the power, chop the throttle to full or to zero, and if you can, just get the plane rolled level, and then just kind of let it fall out of the sky, because it's probably, you know, if you can, just kind of keep it flat, let it sort of pancake down with your throttle off. Things are going to slow down really quick as soon as you pretty quick as soon as you chop the throttle. So just let it do that. Don't try, especially when you're learning, don't try and fly your way out of a bad situation if you're, you know, if the RC gods are not with you that day. Just chop the power and let it happen, and your plane is probably going to be a lot more survivable that way. All right, and the last one, and this again because of my pig-headedness, is know when to call it a day. You know, flying RC planes is you know, it's a bit of a perishable skill, and especially when you're first starting off, you know, life gets in the way, or weather, you know, you can't fly, it's been a while. You go out to the field and, you know, you got stuff on your mind, you know, your dog threw up in your shoes or whatever, and you get out there and it's just not happening. You know, you feel like you're way behind the airplane. You think, oh God, the last time I was out, I don't know, you know, I was flying this thing like I was like I was you know, a Top Gun, and today I can barely keep up with it. So if you get that feeling, you know, it's best just like, you know what, I just call it a day. I still do that. You know, I get out to the field and, you know, maybe I don't have my mojo that day, or the winds come up and, you know, I'm just not feeling it. You know, I'm not feeling feeling the groove kind of thing. Just I'd far rather just say, okay, it wasn't my day. Put my planes in the car, come home, and then I'd rather put batteries on storage, you know, on the charger and put them back in storage charge than try and use them up all at the field and end up smashing up a couple planes. So yeah, so that's something there. So that's, I guess, kind of some of the top 10 things. There's numerous mistakes that I made that I'd be here for days rambling until I went hoarse trying to tell you, but hopefully some of those have helped. And, you know, again, if you're now, you know, if you're flying season, if you're in the northern hemisphere, let's say, and maybe you're you know, you haven't been able to get out to fly yet because of the weather, but you've got a simulator. You know, maybe some of these things, like, you know, just the basic turns, you know, learning to walk before you can run, you can get working on those before your flying season comes up. So anyway, again, my top 10 based on my buffoonery and self-induced stubbornness and pain I caused myself. I hope that you know, you'll be able to learn from that. I know that, you know, I still see guys in videos, and I read on forums sometimes about guys that, you know, still make the same mistakes. So those mistakes are out there, but hopefully that, you know, some of these things will give you something to think about that will help prevent you making the same errors. And you can go out and make some of your own errors, I guess. But anyway, it's fun, you know, and it's just foam. So you know, for your first few planes and you're first learning to fly, you know, don't worry about spending a whole lot of time on a fantastic paint job. Once you feel pretty comfortable, then you know, then you can get into doing some nicer paint jobs and finishing jobs, and hopefully those planes will survive better for you. So thanks very much for watching. Blue skies, calm winds to everyone. Park jet noise, the other sound of freedom, baby. Take care.